Hey, good afternoon. It's Lorraine Perkins with Knowledge and Nonsense, and tonight we have a guest host, Miss Rebecca Kinney from Cypress Rise. Rebecca, how are you?
I'm amazing. How are you?
Oh, I'm Tuesday evenings, one of my favorite nights of the weekday. Tonight's topic is education, or ask the question for SPD educators. Rebecca, before we bring our guests on, I would love for you to what's going on in our world of SPD. We have elections going on. What else is going on out here?
We've got elections going on. We've got the HSPA conference coming up, which I don't know about you, but I'm so excited to meet even some of the individuals on this conversation that I've never had the chance to meet in person. So I'm just stoked. I think that our industry is moving in a positive direction with so many leaders stepping up and stepping out. It's amazing.
It is amazing, and we have some amazing guests tonight. So we want to bring our guests on. The one and only, known for stirring the pot. Where's Jessie? Jessie, come on down.
What's going on? What's going on, guys?
So good to see you.
Yeah, thank you.
And we're also going to set from behind the red line. Rebecca, how are you?
I'm great. How are you guys tonight?
It's a pleasure to see you.
Thank you.
We're missing a guest. We have a surprise guest. Where's Randalyn? Randalyn, there you are. Good to see you.
Hey, everybody.
Thank you so much for joining us tonight on Knowledge and Nonsense. Yes, Dawn, we are so ready for HSPA. First question tonight. How important is SPD education? Jesse.
And if y'all know me, I say education is the key, man. I quote Richie Spice all the time. Education is the key. Why make it expensive for we? But it is so important to elevate your knowledge in SPD because you don't know what you don't know, right? And depending on where you at, what facility, what state, what country, it changes. And you might go in there thinking, oh, this practice that I learned here in this book or in this facility, I can take it with me. And you might have learned the wrong thing for the last 10, 15 years. So it is extremely important to educate yourself.
Very much agree. Randall, what are your thoughts? How important is SPD education?
Oh, it's the backbones to the entire function of the department, right? Nobody can't really do what they're supposed to be doing without knowing the proper way to do it. And so that's everything with the reprocessing and safe handling of the instrumentation, but also just the environment, the hazards that are involved in being inside of a reprocessing environment with all of the equipment and all of the craziness and the chaos. So it really should be the priority in setting the tone for the workflow, and it should be prioritized. And then everything else with a good education backbone, everything else should start to fall into place.
Rebecca, I can see all over your face from behind the red line. What are your thoughts? How important is SPD education?
I think that there should be a bigger word than astronomical to describe the level of importance education has within sterile processing. Without the science and the why behind what we're doing, we're literally just pushing buttons on machines. And that can be detrimental to patient safety. Education is going to help build the foundation that shapes our quality of work and our emotional connection to the work we are doing. And that is a critical link that education can provide us.
Well said. Rebecca Kinney, you are always educating and giving so many jewels away. How important is SPD education?
Whew, it is fire. It is, I love giving and delivering education. When I was a sales rep, I got to do in-services all day long for 12 different local hospitals. And today I get to do it a little bit differently, typically on a LinkedIn platform. But I love to just share the things you didn't know when you started, or the things that you're learning along the way. Because if it meant something to you, it means something to someone else. Or if you didn't know it, someone else didn't know it. And I believe that it affects the entire culture of a department. Would you guys agree that solid education changes the department? altogether.
Absolutely.
How do you guys feel
Yes.
about that?
Absolutely. No, I think educators are so underrated, right? Period.
Yes.
We were talking about this behind stage. Is that just one of those positions that's vital, right, Randalyn? It's vital, but so underrated, so underrated. And to your question, why does the why of education impact the culture? Does it affect the culture?
Yeah, I'll jump on that one. Absolutely. The entire departmental shift can really change. Not only the why, giving them the why behind what they're doing. Everybody wants to have a connection and they want to understand why they're pushing those buttons on the machine, right, Rebecca? So it will be a cultural shift, and it can be such a dynamic change in the organization as a whole because of this trust, right? The educator is given this opportunity to take their team and trust them with knowledge and give them information. And so you're building a relationship and a trust that's going to hopefully shift this culture, and the morale is going to come up, and you're going to see less quality defects and a better, communication. And there's just so many things that can come from that education program and the educator themselves. So absolutely.
Well said. Well said. Rebecca P., what are your thoughts?
Yes, again, the science and the why is going to shape our foundation and emotionally connect us to what we're doing. But when everyone in the group knows why they have to wash and sterilize something a specific way, they become invested in doing it correctly for the patient. And then when a collaborative group of technicians understand that why, everyone has the patient's back, and everyone on the team is held to a certain level of accountability. So it makes those conversations among your technicians of calling each other out way more easier and drama-free. So you can be, hey, Bob, this came through the washer together. I can show you how to take it apart if you don't know how. So it creates a culture of, I know, like, we have to do this right for the patient, and I'm not going to judge you for calling me out on my mistake. Let's learn together.
So powerful. It's Jessie, that why, and once you adopt and inherit that why, it's almost like a DNA explosion. It's like the light bulb comes on. You get it. I understand my purpose. Jessie, why is education so impactful in the culture of your department?
Well, again, because it's a piece that for, I'm going to say decades, because I've been in this field for decades, it was never the priority. As Rebecca said, it was never the priority to give you the why. It was like, here, learn this, take a certification course, get certified, and you're in the field. I mean, it happens to travelers all the time. They go into a facility and it's thought that, hey, they know what they're doing, let them run free. And honestly, no, you have to learn from the beginning. I mean, the education part is so important to know that why, but I'm going to stir this pot on a little bit on this one. Depends on where you get that education from, because there's a lot of bad education out there.
Absolutely.
I mean, we have subject matter experts, and I hate that terminology, that give out the wrong information. And then when you go across and you try to, and you research it deeply, because it's not just about a Google, it's about going further than that. And you research it and be like, no, this isn't. Who interpreted it that way? So education is important, but be careful where you get that education from.
Yes.
Well
is it knowledge or is it nonsense?
There you go. Boom, man. Drop that bomb. Where the mic at?
And it can be hard to identify what's knowledge and what's nonsense when you're in sterile processing, because sometimes you're in a facility that doesn't support education. So the technician, sometimes we have to take it upon ourselves to invest in education and finding what is truth and what is not the right way to be doing stuff.
Researching it. Yeah.
How do you do that? Digging a little deeper. How do you do that?
Oh, go ahead, Randalyn.
Nope. Go for it.
I was going to say, technicians asking questions, if they're not supported, a big thing I tell everyone now is go to LinkedIn, get on Facebook, social media, and start connecting with your peers in the community. And then through there, you'll find your connections and your resources, how to access a better education, what websites to look at, and that kind of thing. Others can help you develop your tribe and move forward from there.
Yeah, I totally agree. And when it comes to educating, I know Rebecca and Randalyn, you both educate within your facilities. Can you talk to us about the different types of educators in facilities? I know that there's clinical educators, system educators, and department educators. Can you elaborate a little bit on the different types of educators?
Wow.
Yeah. For me, it started, departmental educator, right, and supporting a variety of things within sterile processing and peri-op. I've done a little of both, and really, that's a lot of training. There's a lot of training involved with the departmental educator, naturally, because SPD has got the gateway of always hiring and always onboarding. So there's a huge focus around policies and implementing policies, and then functioning to support that department, that sterile processing department. You're just dedicated really to the staff's evolvement, competency verification, and the flow of the department, making sure everyone's doing what they're supposed to be doing, in line with IFUs, all of that, best practices. And then I did move into a system educator role where I was supporting, the entire organization, and that includes the hospital, the ambulatory surgery centers, and then all of the physician network clinics. And so that is more of a focus of standardizing the education, taking what you developed at the main unit and spreading that out and implementing it at all of the other sites. Well, you can imagine how challenging that is. Different equipment, high level disinfection, different components of this, that, or the other thing. And so trying to standardize policies across this multidisciplinary unit is extremely challenging, because not everybody does things the same. And ambulatory surgery centers and clinics may have different guidelines that they're following. And so you have to try to tug and pull, and it's just a lot of research. And then now I'm in a clinical educator role for another company. And so I support clinical education on focusing on just the clinical aspect, which is really driving patient safety, pulling in every type of regulation and standard and guideline, and teaching people that maybe are not clinical what it means to be clinical, such as sales, the sales division, and product managers, and everybody on the clinical aspect of what sterile processing is.
Yeah. And I mean, I could totally agree. Like, I remember when I was a vendor, it would drive me crazy because I could work with one healthcare system, and every single facility within that system would have a different standard. And that made it really hard to operate within best practices and keep patient safety a focus, because every hospital did it different. So I'm sure, I mean, it's pretty cool to see how you've come full circle, Randalyn, and gone through the whole process within.
Yeah, that's really,
Rebecca,
really...
I see you nodding your head.
I was just gonna say, like, everything. She touched on everything I was gonna say too, and it's awesome to hear based from your experiences as in each of those roles. And I will be honest with you guys, up until 2018, I've never heard the term clinical educator used within a sterile processing realm, only the nursing realm. Mm-hmm. So it was only like until a consultant group came into the facility I was working at, where they had a sterile processing educator titled as sterile processing clinical educator. And my mind was just like blown. I was like, oh, that sounds so legit. Like, as if sterile processing educators weren't legit enough. So it really kind of like had me think, because in the nursing realm, that's the normal clinical educator. So why aren't, anyway,
layers.
The layers, yes.
So many layers. I recall, a time, and it still happens now, where the OR educator is over all education. Mm-hmm. And it comes to a halt once you reach certain topics within SPD. That's when the OR educator, my experience, has to pass the ball. So again, education, so important. Jessie, what are your thoughts?
Again, you just kind of like dove into what I was thinking. Depends on where you get your education from. It's there's so many pieces of the puzzle that has to come in. Again, how does that educator decipher or interpret the standards? Where are they looking at? Are they referring AORN, Amy? Are they doing ISO? You know, are they just looking at CDC guidelines? The interpretation, even though they speak the same language, it's that one little word that can change the whole schematic of what you're teaching. So, and again, from facility to facility, a large facility isn't going to operate the way a small facility. So you're going to go from a 30-bed OR to a 5-bed OR. It's not going to be the same regardless of what you want. Some people might operate more from peel packs. Other ones need complete sets. So that education aspect right there and knowing the difference of those different processes is extremely important and can get kind of frustrating, especially if you're a system-wide educator, because you gotta modify the education for that facility regardless of you trying to standardize it. So yeah, it can be crazy.
Absolutely. Alexandria said sterile processing positions are systematically categorized in such a manner that dilutes the contribution and impact salary. That's a mouthful. That's a mouthful.
I was going to say.
Right? Mouthful.
We're going to have the money talk. That's a whole different ballgame. Yeah.
Hey, that might be part 2 to this conversation here.
Yeah, that's definitely a whole other ballgame right there.
Right. Well, we have so much more to talk about, but we're gonna pause for a quick commercial break. So grab your pencil and pads and come on back here on Knowledge or Nonsense.
Ooh.
Those in the know SIPS Consults. SIPS Consults is hiring. Confident, competent, and consistent. Starting as a consultant and a volunteer, SIPS has grown into a dynamic group of stellar sterile processing professionals, offering excellent benefits, 401k, and consultant in training program. We are hiring certified technicians, leads, supervisors, interim managers, educators, coordinators. Apply at recruiting@sipsconsults.com or dial 1-866-615-7977.
Hey, welcome back. Welcome back to Knowledge and Nonsense. Rebecca, before we get to the next question, tell us a little about Cypress Rise.
Ooh, Cypress Rise is my business. And I've been in healthcare for 15 years working in sterile processing or with it. And about 5 years ago, I saw a real gap in my ability to influence with my education. So this is perfectly suited to what we're talking about. I would go to an in-service and there would be 2 people there. So at some point I was like, man, there's got to be a better way to reach more people. So I turned to LinkedIn. And now today I work with multiple different medical companies and medical consultants and physicians to help them with their own LinkedIn and just creating a cohesive message, educating and making what they do about who they're speaking to, not about the products they have. So I love my business. And, you know, it wasn't that long ago that I was working in corporate America as a medical sales rep. And now it's full-time business for me. And I just love serving at that higher level and just helping businesses and medical professionals frickin' thrive. Oh. And frickin' is the technical term.
We love it. We absolutely love it. Randalyn, how and who decides when and who gets education within the department?
Oh,
who's the shot caller? Who's the shot caller?
Oh boy, that's a collaborative approach, as though not always easy. It's big that it can't be one person. You know, as Jessie would stir the pot and say, it depends on where that educator is getting their education from. For multiple reasons, it can't just be one person. There's so many variables, and it's really based on what's going on in the department. It's ever changing. It's ever evolving. It should be built based on the structure of the feedback from the people that are learning, right? Ask the employees. You'd be surprised to post something up to the staff. This is a tool I always used. I will post it up. It's a blank piece of paper. Tell me what you feel like you need to learn. The paper is full by the end of the day. Like, they're not afraid to tell you what they feel like they haven't been trained on. And so that's one component. Management is going to drive the other component because they have a need of information that has to reach their staff, right? There's things that they know that maybe the educator doesn't know, maybe the staff doesn't know. You have to collaborate with leadership to make sure you're getting that across, and then partnering with your equipment, making sure you're touching everything in that department, and then your other departments as well, like infection control. Do we have a spike in infection? Do we have things going on in peri-op? Do we have a multitude of quality defects? What's going on inside the tracking system, right? There's key focus points that we should be throwing at them, and making them fun. So it's got to be a cohesive decision, I think.
Powerful. Behind the red line, this one is for you. Are there common indicators that education is desperately lacking in a team and or a department?
Yes.
How do you know it's lacking?
So sometimes non-compliance within the department standard operating procedures can indicate that someone doesn't understand what they're supposed to be doing. Oftentimes, the employee can be looked at as being insubordinate, depending on your facility. But realistically, that person may just be afraid to ask a question. You're going to present them with an educational opportunity rather than remediation plan initially. That way it kind of promotes the culture and the positivity through asking for help and asking for clarification. Another indicator can be consistent errors with specific devices. So for an example, once you get to the OR, the caps of these shavers still have water inside of them, or in this shoulder set, I have a fiber wire cutter when there should be a fiber tape cutter. Those patterns and those specific trends can determine where your team needs targeted education. So that to me is where you can find the clarification.
Jessie, I can see you're ready to stir that pot. So
Yeah.
we're gonna clear the lane and let you go for it.
Well, I mean, again, those common indicators Rebecca stated, they're all there. Inconsistency within shifts, seeing one person, wrap a tray compared to putting it into a rigid container, or, not putting tip protectors on an item that needs to go in a peel pack, just the inconsistencies. The way decon flows, not organizing correctly in there. It's just different patterns and different work habits, and just from people generally asking the question when they finally see an educator. Oh my God, I never see a manager on the floor, or educator. I got so much I need to learn. That is right there. It's like, yeah, this place is really needing some help. Even from the management team. Because they don't know it all. So, I've been pulled to the side by management and be like, hey, I need you to look this over because this is how we've been doing it. And I've been approached by an employee who asked a question about it. So now I'm asking you. So, yeah, those inconsistencies, those are very common. And that's from facility to facility.
Now, Rebecca, isn't that the power of teamwork? You don't always have to be the all-star player and the coach. Right? You can jump in and ask a staff member, hey, can you double check this IFU? Can you preview? Isn't that the power of teamwork?
I would say so. And you know what? I would also like to add in one thing that is 100% off script here. And it's this. When you work in a department and there are issues happening and they're continuous, I think that there has to be a come to Jesus moment that is just a clear moment of understanding. Because I know when I worked in sterile processing for 7 years, sometimes I just didn't understand why it frickin' mattered. Somebody needed to tell me, hey, Becca, if the rigid endoscope has a black spot on it, your oncologist can miss the cancer when they're in a procedure. That 3 millimeter difference is the difference between a patient being cancer-free or still having cancer. And that was you not checking and you not doing your job. So I think sometimes there's those heart moments, but I think most times people aren't negligent. I think they just don't know.
Yes.
Good point. Valid point.
And so it's on all of us to feel comfortable enough in that culture to say, hey, you know what? You're doing it wrong, but here is why it actually matters. It's not just, you're doing it wrong. It's here's why it matters. And that makes all the difference, I think.
I agree. I think a positive trend that I wish we can get back to is when we allow our sterile processing technicians up to the OR so they can see how the devices they maintain, right? Is utilized. Have you had that experience?
Yeah. I incorporated it. I mean, one of the projects, many projects with writing, onboarding, new hire orientation plans, rewriting and structuring a whole new hire orientation plan. And I incorporated it and made it mandatory. It was absolutely not even just touring the OR, not even just going up there to sit in a case. They got to sit in a case later. They could sign up and partner with a surgeon. I had surgeons that wanted this to happen. So they would partner with the surgeon and watch a case later after they went through all of their training. But this was more partnering with a scrub tech, right? A day in the life of a scrub tech, and a scrub tech understanding a day in the life of an SPD tech is going to full circle help each other, because they're going to send their trays down better. They're going to think of that SPD technician instead of them thinking as just that person down there that's cleaning my tray or over there. Oh, I remember, it's Randalyn and she showed me this and her job is so difficult because she has to do this. And so a buddy system, if you will, in the operating room, where both sides are given equal opportunity to learn from each other, because that's going to carry weight later, when they're functioning in their role.
So from behind the red line, different educators teach differently, right? Rebecca, what are your thoughts on what education style was most impactful on your career? How did you learn best?
Ooh, how did I learn best? I found that one-on-one and closer working with somebody that was truly invested in their job and the why and knew what they were doing from top to bottom. When you can see that as a tech, you look up to these people as a mentee. And when you can see somebody that is passionate about the job and what they're teaching you, it connects that emotion. So you feel, for me, I felt more empowered learning from somebody that was invested in what I was doing. But again, I like to learn through hands-on learning and more like one-on-one teaching rather than like group styles.
Jessie, how about you, sir?
I tout myself as a jack of all trades, master of none. So I have a very good memory. So when I read something or I see something, I can usually mimic it. But my teaching style is basically I adapt to the individual. Like, I love the feedback. If I see somebody struggle, that's the person I gravitate to, because it's like I want to find the angles for them to learn. Not everyone learns quickly. Some people, like myself, I can see something one time and I'm going to try it. Some people just don't like to jump in, and they need that explanation. I mean, as an educator outside of the hospital, I have certain students that are like, they want like the scientific explanation as to why we do what we do. And I'm like, okay, now I have to switch gears here, because I'm going to lose everybody, but I'm going to explain it to you. But it opens up questions throughout the whole crowd, and it makes the learning experience a lot better. And then you have those individuals that they just don't get it and they need that hands-on. And a lot of it happens like that. Unfortunately, with this in Jersey, that is, certification is part of an SPD tech's requirements. You have to be certified. So that bookwork has to come in, so you can't be just strictly hands-on. You got to know that intricate education as well.
Well said. Well said. We get a lot of feedback from LinkedIn. There was a hot seat question. And this question is for the panel from LinkedIn. Rust and scope channels. How to clean and when to send out for repair.
I love this. I love this question.
Repair automatically. Repair.
Jessie, I was going to say, I don't got to say it. Jessie's going for this one. I know it.
Repair. It's you can't clean rust. Simple. This is I see this so much in SPD. It's like one of the top 10 pet peeves. Oh, let's throw some surgery stain on it. Let's get that rust off and clean it and send it through. That's a Band-Aid over the problem. Sergi stain isn't gonna, give that passivation layer back, especially in a scope, in a channel. Send out for repair. You can't put Sergi stain on there. You're gonna damage the lens. You're gonna damage the adhesive around that lens. Out the repair automatically.
Okay.
And if you're flushing any type of liquid down that channel over that rust, it's going into your patient.
Correct.
So automatically it should be sent out for repair, regardless if you have a service contract or not. Bye-bye.
Yeah, right. And go ahead. Yep.
I was going to say, when in doubt, send it out. You see
Yeah.
the line. I would always tell, and it depends on what kind of scope we're talking about here. I'm not going to get super, super technical, but if we're talking about a flexible endoscope that has a Teflon biopsy channel, oftentimes those get kinks in them. Those need to be sent out fully disassembled and replaced as a new component within the scope. And like Jessie was saying, there's no amount of cleaning you can do that will get rid of that. So when in doubt, send it out. It's one of the best phrases that I could always live by.
Hey, say it again.
and I'll add a little bit more to that. When it comes to rust again, that comes to the education part of it. Rust is indicative of damage. It's not, rust don't grow on a surface that doesn't have any kind of damage or any wear and tear. It's just not going to sit there and rust for no reason at all. It's something's going on with that surface or that channel that's causing the rust. So that's an automatic indication that something's going on. Clean it so that it can be handled to be sent away to get repaired.
Oh, but wait, there's more right after this commercial break.
This is myself and Tammy Hancock. Hey, Tammy, how are you doing tonight?
Good evening, Sharon. I'm well. I hope you are.
I am well. I'm well. I have my notepad. I'm getting a lot of information and education, but we wanted to take this moment to ask you some questions. I know that you are running for a board member of HSPA, and so we're excited about that. And we just wanted to ask, tell us about yourself. Why are you running? And a little bit of your history before we go back into our educator session.
Thank you. My name's Tammy Hancock, and I'm the Director of Sterile Processing here in a system in Northern Kentucky. I was a surgical technologist for 15 years, and in that time went back and forth between the operating room and sterile processing. Absolutely fell in love with sterile processing. Knew that was my home. Had it not been for the fact that the neurosurgeon I was working for absolutely refused to let me leave the OR, I would have been in sterile processing full time. But as it was, I finally transitioned into sterile processing full time about 7 years ago. And it was at that time that I realized our industry needed people to make our voices heard. We've historically been, the people in the basement, the glorified dishwashers. Nobody really understood what it was we were doing or how complicated it was. Surgeons, executive teams, nobody could understand why we so often didn't get it right. No one understood it was we had 2 sinks when we needed 6. No one understood it was we had 2 instrument washers when we needed 8, or we had 1 sonic when we needed 4. So that just led me to achieve, great things for myself personally and for my organizations. But it also made me aware in attending conferences and speaking with people like you, Sharon, that our voices aren't heard often. So that's why I wanted to run. I want people to hear our stories, and I want to help elevate sterile processing to the crucial level that it is. and make sterile processing heard around the world. So when you tell someone you work in sterile processing, they don't give you that deer in the headlights look like, what is sterile processing?
Yeah. Well, you know what? This election has everyone who is running is just like awesome. And I'm so excited because we have the right people who are really going to work for this industry and really working together, like collaborative. It's not a bunch of opposition now. People are actually working together for the betterment of this industry. And so, Tammy, I'm excited about it. Guys, go ahead and go and vote. If you haven't voted, check your emails, go through that link and vote. Make your voice heard. There are 45,000 members of ISHM. We need at least 30,000 people voting in our elections. Make your voice heard. Let's practice getting our voice heard with the election. And next thing you know, it's being heard in the committee meetings. It's being heard in the rooms. What do you mean they're listening? Yes, we are a force to be reckoned with. So make your voice heard. Tammy, thank you so much. Is there anything else you'd like to say before we go back to this discussion with this awesome panel of educators?
I just want to thank all of the sterile processing professionals out there for everything you guys do. You're heroes. And yes, get out there and vote.
All right. Have a good one. And we'll see you at the polls. Talk to you guys later.
Thank you, Sharon.
Lost time is never found again. CS Assist specializes in providing CS leadership more time to focus on all resources on patient care and safety by assisting with your compliance needs. We understand there are many departmental recommendations and even more regulatory compliance mandates to adhere to and to follow. We focus on the constant changes in staff education and regulatory compliance, allowing you to focus on the daily operational needs. Realizing the value of time, we partner with you to alleviate risk in all areas. CS Assist offers a variety of support packages that includes everything from CSPD-specific policies and procedures to fully customized service readiness plans. For more information regarding retainer options, our qualitative reporting tools, or our online documentation, call CS Assist at 1-833-CSP-ASST. That is 1-833-277-2778. We look forward to speaking with you.
Hey, welcome back. Welcome back to Knowledge and Nonsense. Thank this amazing panel for spending some time. There's so much going on in our community, right? Scrub Board, HSPA, conferences live and in action. But before we proceed, I want all of us to give a round of applause to all of the educators out there right now, helping to raise the bar. So this is to all of our educators. Keep doing what you do. Really keep doing what you do. Jessie, tell us about Stir the Pot. What did you come up with the concept and why? And I want to give every other staff, every other committee member, panelist or guest here the same opportunity, just so we can let our audience into your world a little bit.
Stir the Pot started with me getting tired of hearing the calm version of what's going on in our industry. Conference after conference, you know, we always hear about what we should be doing, what's going on, or how it should look, but we don't talk about how it really is going on in there. So Stir the Pot was designed not to give you answers to a solution, but to make you think about your processes of where you're at or in the industry as a whole. It's looking at it and saying, you know, something, yeah, you know, we are doing it like this, but he referred to the standard and is saying this, why are we doing it like this? So Stir the Pot was basically, it was a rebellion on my part, because for a lot of throughout my career, I was overlooked because I am very brash. I'm very upfront. If it's wrong, it's wrong, and I'm going to call it. So Stir the Pot was my way of saying it to the world.
Awesome. Awesome. So I have another question to put out there, and then I want to hear about Behind the Red Line. How and who decides what gets educated and when? How and who decides what gets educated and when? Randalyn, what are your thoughts there?
I would say, oh boy. So it kind of depends. Again, this is a multi-tiered and variable question. It depends on who's in the department, what is the size of the department, what is the leadership structure is another component of this. Do you have one SPD manager with an SPD director that's driving, or do you have a peri-op director that oversees all of it? Because you're going to have different initiatives, sometimes different goals. The educator, if you are lucky enough to have one in your organization, invests in one, then that educator can really drive the needs, because they should be involved in the department. They should always be involved in the department. They should know everything that's going on, building relationships and feeding off of what the staff needs. I think it's driven by a lot of different factors. And I mean, I could go on, but I'm going to leave it at that.
Gotcha. Rebecca, you are absolutely killing it on Clubhouse. Such an amazing force. How and who decides what gets educated on and when? And after you give that dynamic answer, I want to know what inspired you to jump into the Clubhouse space.
Sure. So currently at my facility, it is a collaboration between myself and my supervisor. We look at trends or new services coming to SPD and base our education on that. Any items that upper management would like our SPD to focus on, we also assess and develop a plan together to tackle and educate the team. If we are hiring and have new staff coming on, if we have multiple new hires, I'll shift my focus towards the new hire that doesn't have experience for onboarding and training. And if I was with other trainees that had experience, my lead techs will jump in and continue on with them while I can work with the new hire. So it is a group effort. And I feel that it's truly not successful if you can't have education as a group effort. So for Clubhouse, I was asked by Joanne and Sarah Cruz if I'd like to be a part of that. And I jumped at it because it sounded so awesome to be a part of social media discussion. And it was my first real shot at like getting out there and putting myself out there on social media. And it's turned into this wonderful educational program that every Thursday now we're providing wonderful insight to anybody that wants to log in for free. And then Behind the Red Line was started with Alessandra Nicholson from Process, branching out from the process to give more of an insight and a deeper look into the social aspects of our technicians, you know, all of those things that aren't talked about, like mental health and any of those issues pertaining to race, class, wealth, gender, etc. So we wanted to open up a educational space pertaining to that and start those real talk discussions.
Wow. So you're stepping outside of the department with topics that impact what's going on inside of the department as well.
Yes, with real storytelling and just compassion. So
amazing. Cypher Rise. That's such a unique name. Where did you come up with that concept? I know there's a story behind that.
Yes. You know, when it comes to, well, it came based off of a cypress tree, which is a sturdy and steady tree that takes a long time to grow. And it has to be rooted and grounded, and it slowly builds. And once it's taken its hold, it can stand the test of time. They say that Noah's Ark was even made out of cypress, and it can just take the hits and it can keep coming. So, you know, that's where Cypress came from. And then the rise aspect of it is just to continually encourage people to rise up, step out of your comfort zone. And, you know, I think that that's very, very true in terms of educating, right? Like sometimes we have to step up and step out of our comfort zone to say, hey, this is the right thing. And Jessie, I know you're the man when it comes to keeping it real and keeping it blunt. Like how do you address, you know, when you see something is wrong, like how do you bring that to light in a professional manner?
Cool. Professionalism isn't my strong point. It's I have a very good relationship with my director, and she understands. And she actually found me through LinkedIn. And she understands that when I see something wrong, is I'm in there is like, hey, boss, you know, we're practicing something here that I believe is not, but I always come with the hard facts before I go in there all rough and tough and ruffled under the feathers. You know, I gather my information, and I gather my, you know, standards, or where I got the information from is not Jesse's opinion. It's, hey, you know, we're doing this, or we're processing this incorrectly, and I think we need to educate all over again. And you know, I'll put up a PowerPoint, submit it to her for her to look over, and she gives me the green light. She backs me up all the way. So it makes it a lot easy. Past facilities wasn't so easy.
I'd like to back that up too, because I feel like my superior is also quite understanding of me. When something's going wrong, I'm like Jessie. I get really what's the proper word here? Passionate. So trying to learn how to control your emotions is a huge thing, but it's important as an educator to either have a really positive working relationship with your superiors and your leadership team, so they can be like, all right, this is truly an issue. Let's take a breath and let's break it down together and figure out the root cause of the situation.
Great response.
Right, and I think that the root cause sometimes comes back to the metrics. Randalyn and Rebecca, I know you can speak to this, but having the proper systems in place to be tracking these error rates and be able to cater education directly to what's happening within a department, I think is very key as well.
Yeah,
definitely. The other component of it too is that I had to learn throughout my career is that you have to pick your battles. It's some stuff you can educate on all you want and want to do the right thing, but there's no real way around it. And I'll put an example out there is, you know, we know the IFUs for wrapped items say do not stack, but probably every facility you walk into, you see that, you know, and if the space and the budget isn't there, you got to bite the bullet on that one sometimes, you know, but you have to be able to speak to that process as to why it's happening. And, you know, what are you doing to mitigate any kind of further contamination or damage to the package and things of that nature. And as a good educator, you'd have to find that, again, that modification to educate in that way.
Before we has a question for the panel. Statement. He said, these days, the instrumentation are not made with great grade of metal, or the water is not soft enough. What are your thoughts? Are they switching the metals in our instrumentation? We got some past vendors on the panel. What's going on in Germany with this metal?
Well, water quality is definitely going to affect your thing. So if you are in a facility and you're in the education or leadership role, it's up to you guys to know that your water quality is not great, how to remediate that, or discuss with your team, hey, we live in this state, we're going to have really hard water. So this is what's going to happen to your instruments over time. These are what water stains look like. This is how to determine if it's rusting, if it's pitting, if it's what color the stain is, and, you know, the stain test with the eraser, right? So it really helps you direct education when you know your facility. And as an educator, you really need to be able to explain, like, okay, at other places with RO water, you're not going to see this discoloration on all the instruments, but here in this part of the world, our instruments are going to have funky colors on them. So this is normal here, it's abnormal here. So once you lay that groundwork down and they understand the why behind your instruments look and feel differently, we don't incorporate that into errors, you know.
I would pull that even further. Like part of this educator role is quality, right? I always looked at it as, I'm not just an educator, I'm also a quality coordinator, because it's one full circle. You're going to have quality outcomes if your team is, thriving and understanding what they're doing. So I've pushed hard and pulled in so many people, from facilities to reaching out to our vendor and getting a water study done. We collected the water, we send it to a lab, we get the data to back up what you're saying. If you can collect the data to back up what you're saying, you can support leadership and push back to say, this is what we need to do. No, this is not okay. Yes, I'm going to get it changed. Or I've taken it. I know this might not make a lot of people happy, but I've taken it to the surveyor. The surveyor is there.
Yes.
They said, we've talked about water quality the last 6 years that I've been here. What are we doing about it? Use it. If the surveyor is going to write it down and make a recommendation, there you go. There's your budget and your finance. And there's the push to the leadership to say, yes, we need to invest in better water quality. And from a surgical instrument perspective, it's stainless steel. It should be a 300, 400 level. It should be coming from a manufacturer that's providing that. If that manufacturer is not providing you with a quality product, push back. Do an analysis. What can we do? What are we spending on surgical instruments this month? Let's go with another vendor. Let's get premier pricing from another vendor because we have data to back it up. So there's some real serious work. You can take this education to another level and push quality. Because if it's rusting and we're seeing stains and it's not getting any better, let's change it. Let's change the game. Something's not right. The staff doesn't deserve to work with poor quality, and patients don't deserve it.
And as the IFUs evolve, they're calling for critical water. If you don't know what that is, find yourself Amy TIR 34 and get that rolling and out. It really will help justify what you need, especially if an IFU is saying it needs to be rinsed in critical water. And
and this is where, again, that education, as you know, as just stated, but this is where you get your facilities involved as well, not just your leadership in SPD, not the OR, not just IP, but the engineers. Those are the people that you have to talk to, because they're the ones that's going to have to look into this system that's going to be placed into your facility. So that's where the education on that side of the piece comes in at.
Amazing. So I hear you all saying that SPD educators can be agents of change. Is that a true statement?
Definitely.
Absolutely.
Definitely. Absolutely.
Yes.
How does one become an educator, Jessie?
Repeat that. I'm sorry.
How does one become an educator? What are some of the steps?
Honestly, I mean, my step, I'm gonna put how I got into the field. I went out and I basically got every certification I could under the belt and educated myself. And you just strive for it. You have to be able to have that. Not everybody can be an educator, so it's, how does your staff gravitate to you? I always saw that, everyone always came to me for questions, and I never really wanted to be an educator. I didn't think I was capable of doing it, honestly, but as more as I became a preceptor and people gravitated towards me, and I seen that the people that I was precepting came out to become better technicians, that, management and supervisors were asking me questions. That's how you know that you need to start walking on those and that path, into becoming an educator. And again, it's about self-knowledge. It's not always about, what somebody told you or what you're getting off of Google or just what you read out of your training manual. I started off as a scrub tech, and one day I was a scrub tech. The next day I was a sterile processing technician. And I saw how that puzzle fitted together. One can't function without the other. So it was important. And the more I got into it, the more I wanted to learn. And I'm like, all right, we're doing this. And I'm a common sense thinker. So I started thinking, I'm like, wait a minute, we're doing this process like this. Why? Let me find this answer. It's not just about reading those chapters. It's looking at the references at the end of them chapters too. And best believe there's not just one organization. There's a second one. So different references that you go to, it's valuable. So you want to become an educator, educate yourself first, and then, regurgitate that knowledge, because that's one of the things that I've seen in this industry early in my career, is that people grabbed onto knowledge and they didn't want to share it. It's like they didn't want to share it. And I'm like, why? It's like, give it out. And if you're able to regurgitate and share that knowledge, your path is to become an educator.
Thanks for sharing that. Becca, impact and influence. What does that mean? When I hear the term impact and influence, what does that mean?
Me, Becca?
Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Impact and influence. I mean, I could speak for 3.5 hours on this right now passionately, but I believe, I see these questions coming through of how can I become an educator and how can I progress? And the truth is, you can be an educator right where you are today, and you can share your knowledge with an audience on LinkedIn or whatever platform is your preference today. Impact can be big, even if it's not in big numbers. And sometimes I forget exactly what the line is, and I'll skew it, but quality leadership can positively affect the trajectory of somebody's entire life. Yes. And so it's important that if you have knowledge that can change and impact somebody else's life in a positive way, that you figure out a way to share it. And I think, there are professional development cues that we can all take and steps that we can all take. If your passion truly is to become an educator, figure out the steps you need to take. Talk to the people on this panel that have been educators and figure out what steps they took to get there. Did it require a bachelor's degree? What was required to get to the next step? And study that. So the people that are really, really good at what they do, learn from them, because that is how I got to where I am in my own business today, is learning from the experts out there and just saying, hey, I might look dumb. I look dumb a lot. If anybody has ever followed my LinkedIn, I just put it out there. I'll just get on and post a video about professional development or whatever is helping me grow. And to heck if it doesn't resonate with everybody, but sometimes the posts that resonate with the least amount of people resonated with the one right person. So I just say, you've got to put yourself out there.
Put yourself out there. Wow. Powerful. We need to let our audience know where they can find you. How can they get in contact with Randalyn and Jessie and Rebecca Peplau and Rebecca Kinney? How can they find you? How behind the red line, how can they find you?
You guys can find me on LinkedIn under Rebecca Peplau, the Behind the Red Line podcast, or the Sterile Processing What You Don't Know Clubhouse page. Also, my Instagram is FAQ_4_IFU. And a lot of my educational tidbits from my current facility are there. So,
thank you so much, Rebecca. It was such a pleasure chatting with you tonight. Ms. Randalyn, how can our viewers find you? How can they track you down?
LinkedIn. Just search my name on LinkedIn. You'll see it. There's not many Randalyns out there. There's not many Randalyn Walters out there. So if you search me on LinkedIn, you'll see me. I also have a new branded post that's coming through the organization I work for, BellyMed. It's called Clinical Confidence. So I just started posting those on the webpage. So you can search Clinical Confidence and find me that way. Or you can email me at my SPD email. It's Mrs. Walters, SPD21@gmail.com.
Mr. Lopez, stirring the pot. How can our viewers find you, sir?
Well, you can find me on LinkedIn. Just search my name and you'll find me. You can go on YouTube and look under WDYDCSP, which is what do you do as a central sterile processor. You can check out my podcast, Stir That Pot, on all the podcast links, or on Instagram under WDUD. And you can find me on that. Perfect.
Last but certainly not least, my dynamic co-host, Rebecca Kinney, Cypher Rise. How can we find you?
LinkedIn, baby. LinkedIn, baby. LinkedIn, baby. I stay in one lane, and that's it. So Rebecca Kinney on LinkedIn. I have reached my maximum amount of connections, so just hit follow and shoot me a direct message. Anybody else who's interested in learning to grow on LinkedIn, you can follow my business page at Cypress Rise on LinkedIn as well, and we can get in touch via DM. I'm here to help you. I want you to grow as a professional, and anything is possible. So shoot me a message. I'm happy to talk with you.
Thank you so very much for sharing your time with us here at Knowledge and Nonsense. And we'll see you on the road. We'll be at HSPA. We'll be at the Scrub Hole for sure. I hope to see you all there. Have a wonderful night, and keep saving lives, Sterile Processing. You really do matter. And educators, keep on moving forward. Have a good night, team, and see you back here soon.
Take care, guys.
Have a good
Peace.
night.
Bye-bye. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.